Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Travel Podcast, brought to you by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Stacey.
And I'm your co-host, Sarah.
And as we're recording this, though not necessarily when the listeners are listening to this, it is now officially summer.
Yep.
Not just it's hot enough to be summer, but yet we haven't yet had the summer solstice. It's now officially summer, which means I don't want to be where I currently live because it's always hot here.
And again, I say, yep.
Yep, just all these. That's all Sarah's going to do this episode. Yep.
Yep. No, yeah. It is hot. And, you know, we've talked about this before, maybe on this podcast, maybe on another podcast. This is my second time living in Northern California, and I've lived here 8 years this time. And every year, it still takes me by surprise. Yeah. I don't know why. I know it's coming, and yet when it gets here, I'm like, why is it so hot in April?
Yeah, I've lived here all my life, and I'm just always like, summer's coming. Summer's coming. The 3 weeks of spring are over.
And, you know, my friends and family in Montana are like, oh, my God, it's snowing again. And I'm like, it's 95.
Right.
We can share.
Yeah. Why? I've thought about that. Not so much about sharing weather because I don't know that we're there yet. And also I'm pretty sure that's the plot of a disaster movie is us trying to control the weather. And of course that not working. Mm-hmm. But I always did wonder why, like, we're having terrible fires in California, and then back east they're having like flooding. And I'm like,
I know. Can we
have a national like pipeline system to bring that water out here
or
where we
need it? Or at least
just
fill up some trucks.
Right. You know? The water is totally in the wrong place.
There's always flooding when there's on one part of the country when there's fires in another. It never seems to fail.
This is why we have such a large country, solely for this dichotomy. Not really, but I do every summer wish I was one of those fancy rich people who had like a summer house in a not as hot place. Mm-hmm. I am neither fancy nor rich, so that doesn't quite work. But because I've been seriously wishing for the past however many years to have a fancy rich place.
What better way to do that than on the podcast where we take imaginary trips all the time anyway?
Exactly. So our location for today is Martha's Vineyard.
Nice.
Which Sarah did ask me before, and I actually still don't know why it's called Martha's Vineyard.
I shall look it up in a moment.
A vineyard. But Martha's Vineyard is an island located about 7 miles south of Cape Cod in Massachusetts that is known for being an affluent summer colony, only accessible by boat and air. And it's one of those things, you know, it's sort of really heavily associated with like the Kennedys, and they had their compound out near there. Mm-hmm. And so it's this sort of like richer, but also, I want to say preppy, but that's not quite what I mean.
Waspy.
Waspy sounds pretty. Although the Kennedys were Catholic, so.
Right, they were, but.
Not the Wasky.
It just makes me think of like summer beach reads, or you know, plots.
Oh, yeah.
The location for a summer beach read, or like a scene or an episode from Sex and the City, or you know, and they're or movies, summer movies. Sometimes they go, and I feel like there's a bus that will take you there if you don't want to fight the traffic, but maybe that's just in a random book that I read, or you know, obviously you can't take a bus since it's an island, but but. I don't know.
It's one of those things where I looked up because I was sure it wasn't the place, but I couldn't remember where it was. I looked up Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, yes.
So that's also a rich summer place. That's in the Hamptons.
Mm-hmm. But that's the other thing. I think I tend to conflate the Hamptons and Martha's Vineyard, having never lived on the East Coast. Right. I did live in Pennsylvania, which, you know, is sort of East Coasty, but not like what I think of in terms of the Hamptons and Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, I haven't lived on the East Coast either. My mother's family's from Massachusetts, so I'm sure they're all listening going, what are you talking about? Those are
not the same place.
But yeah, they're all. It's the East. There's a bunch of small states, and
you know, folks on the East Coast, that you can't tell the difference between Montana and Idaho, or
North and South California.
Yeah, some of you can, and some of you are like us when it comes to the East Coast.
I am not down the street from Hollywood.
Nope.
I swear, I'm about like
many hours,
12 hours, depending on traffic. Yes. So anyways, Martha's Vineyard, beyond the Kennedys, is also known for a number of other things. It's where Steven Spielberg's Jaws was shot. And actually some locals played people in the movie. Which
nice.
I refuse to see Jaws because I don't like scary things. So
yeah,
but fun for them. But then it's also, because of the Kennedys, famous for the Kennedys, but also somewhat infamous for the Chappaquiddick incident with Ted Kennedy and Mary Jo Kopechne.
Right.
Kopechne?
I think
it's Kopechne.
I'm not sure.
That whole incident with the bridge, and she died, and that people say, killed his chances of being president, and it's never been fully clear exactly what happened that night. And it's amazing how much I associate this with the Kennedys. But I feel this is just the way the Kennedys work, where they're really high, a lot of high highs, but also low lows. Because along with the Chappaquiddick incident...
Which is really just fun to say, Chappaquiddick.
I mean, Native American words. Mm-hmm. But also, that's where John F. Kennedy Jr. died in the plane crash on the way to his cousin's wedding, which is just like, oh man.
Yeah.
So it's like the Kennedys, summers at Martha's Vineyard, and also terrible things at Martha's Vineyard. But beyond the Kennedys, there is a small population of people who live year-round at Martha's Vineyard, about 16,500 or so. Mm-hmm. But the summer population, because it is known as the summer retreat, can grow to more than 100,000. And about 56% of the homes in the vineyard are only seasonally occupied. So it's very much we're here for the summer and we're sort of dead the rest of the year.
Right.
Unless you're like one of those locals who hates all the tourists, in which case you're like, the rest of the year is fantastic.
Fantastic.
And I summer somewhere else.
I also have I don't know if it's a fascination, but an interest from books that I've read of places like this that are very, very seasonal. Mm-hmm. And then, but to experience life there during the off season, just kind of.
Yeah. But
then I also think island, I feel like, I don't know that they would have terrible winters. Maybe they don't. Maybe they have mild winters. I really don't know. But I think it would be fascinating to go there during the off season, or even live there during the off season.
It now makes me think of The Goonies, because The Goonies was set, and the whole thing with the restaurant is it was very popular during summer, but it's off season, so why is the restaurant open?
Right, except that was in Oregon, so wrong coast, but
totally.
Yeah.
Well, I'm California. I like this coast better. But yeah, so it's got some famous people who live there beyond the Kennedys. Judy Blume is a resident of Martha's Vineyard, but it's changing somewhat now, but it was well known for being a place where famous people could come without worrying about, being bothered.
Right.
About that.
Can I interject real quick?
Yes.
With it's not sure. Uh-huh. It's not completely known who it's named after, but it might have been named after. I mean, it was Martha's Vineyard discovered, named by the English explorer Bartholomew Gosnold. It may have been named after his mother-in-law or his daughter. Or maybe both. I don't know.
It was probably the daughter, but he said it was the mother-in-law, so she wasn't upset with him.
Just to keep the peace.
Was it originally a vineyard?
Not that I'm seeing, but I'm still trying to read and talk at the same time, which is always fun.
Yes, maybe he meant it to become a vineyard. It was like, Martha, here's your vineyard. And then we just never got around to that. But interestingly, Martha's Vineyard was well known for being a sort of utopia for deaf people.
Oh.
It had a very high rate of hereditary deafness, to the point that it actually became known as an everyone sign community for several hundred years, and it had its own version of sign language.
Interesting.
And to the point that because the deaf community and the hearing community intermarried so much, pretty much everyone did sign. Everyone knew how to sign, whether or not they could hear.
So they had their own sign language. So was it really different from ASL, or
no,
was it just
wasn't,
like sort of like colloquialisms, or like a dialect?
Right.
Different?
Like I'm trying to think of what would Pigeon ASL, probably not Pigeon ASL, Creole ASL.
Something.
It's related to ASL, but I think it might have actually, I can't remember now the order of that, whether ASL influenced Martha's Vineyard Sign Language or Martha's Vineyard Sign Language influenced ASL.
Okay.
I did see it, but now I'm forgetting the order of it.
Okay.
But yeah, so I thought that was that's a really random fact and not anything I'd ever heard before, given that this is sort of, rich summer playground for the rich.
Yeah.
Something you don't hear about as much. And that's not the case so much anymore because of that was when it was before it was the summer retreat, when it was a place where people actually lived their lives. It was known as the Everyone Sign community. But then as it became let's get away for the summer, the population sort of changed at that. So, and it also changed because of the tourism and the effects that had on the economy. Right. But we'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to take a short break, so stay tuned.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith.
An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Welcome back to the GSMC Travel Podcast. Today we're talking about Martha's Vineyard, where I at least wish I was rich enough to go. I also want to have the lifestyle where I can just go away for a summer. That was more so even than the money to go fancy places was wait, you don't have to go back to work? Like you can just stay here all summer?
Well, clearly you need an imaginary lover with a home on Martha's Vineyard. Because if he has a home on Martha's Vineyard, he can clearly afford to take you to Martha's Vineyard.
Well, here's the thing. He probably doesn't even need to have a home because a lot of the locals rent out their homes for the summer. And, I mean, that's probably a good way to make income is to be like, and also, especially if you're one of those locals who's like, I hate the tourists, be like, I will rent out my home every summer and go somewhere that is not here. But anyways, so the Vineyard grew as a tourist destination primarily because of its very pleasant summer weather. I hear that's a thing. I've never had pleasant summer weather. I'm not sure what that entails.
I have. I miss it.
But anyways, yeah, supposedly there, during summers, the temperature rarely goes above 90 degrees, which makes me laugh in a sort of, I'm going a little crazy way, because we rarely go below 90 degrees once it's actually officially summer.
Yeah.
But it also has very many beautiful beaches, which is the one thing I'm like, I don't care. I actually don't like beaches too much.
I'm not a huge fan of sand.
Yeah, no. But I would love summer places below 90.
Yeah.
Just places where you can never, ever get to triple degree weathers. That would be amazing. I have no idea what that's like. I mean, I do, but not, in the majority of my life.
I do. And again, I miss it.
So yes, it's a primarily a place where people go to relax, and it's not so much a let's go for the new hotspot sort of thing, but again, take the whole summer and just chill that somehow people can do. And most social life and activity takes place at people's houses, not in the very small towns, because there are a few small towns, and I believe like the school district's tiny.
Right, because you only need a school district for the 16,000 people that live there. So. Mm-hmm.
But of course, as you could probably expect, the most crowded weekend is July 4th, because of course it is. Mm-hmm. But interestingly, the second most crowded after that is the late August weekend of the agricultural fair.
Oh.
Which is okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm. The majority of the Vineyard's residents during the summer are well-established seasonal residents from up and down the northeast coast of the United States. And I think that's where we get the very classical image of the Kennedys. And if the Kennedys had been from Georgia, they probably would have gone somewhere different for their summers. Right. But it's the East Coast. So let's all go to Martha's Vineyard where it doesn't get above 90.
Yeah. Stacey's bitter.
I am.
Hey, speaking of bitter, I'm going to need your help, listeners, because I can find why it's Martha. I still can't find why it's Vineyard.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Tell us why it's named Martha's Vineyard.
Really? I maybe you just picked a random name.
Maybe.
Like, what does this look like to you?
I mean,
a farm? It's not a farm. It's more grand than a farm. Like one of those sort of things, where apartment places are called like villas for some reason.
I mean, there was a small fort and a trading post. Doesn't lead me to saying, hey, let's call this a vineyard.
Right.
Unless he had delusions of grandeur.
That's also very possible. But anyways, so despite popular perceptions of the vineyard as Hollywood East, which I get, but I kind of also don't get, the island's very low-key and quiet, and like I mentioned, celebrities go there to not be seen, or to be not seen, however that would work,
right,
grammar-wise, which I suck at. To the point that locals actually tended to be very protective of celebrity privacy rights, which I can't even imagine. Like, people being protective of other people's privacy. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's, again, California, and actual Hollywood, though not anywhere near where I live, right? That it's like, oh, of course you have paparazzi like camped outside your house and going through your trash because that's celebrityhood. That's totally normal.
That would be awful.
Yeah, but I would again, I'd love to be the person who has the wealth and or fame to go there, but then at the same time, I kind of wouldn't want to be if you so desperately need a nobody's going to bother me place like that. Right.
Yeah, I really don't have any desire to be famous, and so famous that I have to have a place to go where no one will bother me because I'm famous. I just don't have that desire.
Yeah. President Obama and his family actually vacationed there, and it's so great to see these pictures because he's just like playing basketball like just anybody else, and it kind of seems it was a bit different with him because obviously security-wise, it had to be. It couldn't just be pretend you don't know who I am. It's like, no, I've got the security detail. We're not even going to pretend with that. But it was still tried to set it up as much as possible to just be low-key and not what have you.
Right.
I don't even know what to call that because I'm not that famous.
Right. There's probably some word that we don't need to know because... Okay, so here's the only thing I found. There are no vineyards on Martha's Vineyard, but it is believed that there were wild grapevines all over the island when it was first settled, providing inspiration for the second half of the name. Again, listeners or anybody who lives there or has done a history report on this place, share your knowledge.
So, I actually I know I always have an imaginary lover. Mm-hmm. But I actually kind of don't want an imaginary lover just because...
You want to be single and fancy-free on your Martha's Vineyard vacation?
Well, doesn't that go along with the please pretend I'm not a celebrity thing? Please pretend I don't have an imaginary lover?
I think so.
That's so hard. I know it'll be very hard for some people to pretend I don't have an imaginary lover. I don't know how they'll do it.
I keep thinking, I'm married. I can't have imaginary lovers in all these places. But then I'm like, they're imaginary.
Right.
So my husband can't be upset, right?
Well, I mean, unless he...
But then, shouldn't I be taking my husband to these places? Except that they're... It's so confusing.
It is.
The imaginary, not imaginary.
Again, my mind needs a map. But, yeah... I do actually, and I think it's because I read this in a book. There was a book where they went off to summer somewhere, and I can't remember except that the family was Jewish, and it was like right during or before World War II. So they're hearing terrible things from Europe, but they seem to be just rumors. And a child dies. I forget how, but that's the whole thing is we're thinking back to this summer when whichever sibling died and how everything changed that summer. Yeah. But so in that, going away for however long for the summer still feels like a not real anymore thing. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are people who do go away for whole summers, but it feels like a very much pre-1960s sort of thing.
Maybe a little, yeah. I mean, it does kind of have that sort of old school feel to it, doesn't it?
Right. But then it also, in that, I think the narrator likes to read on the porch. And so that's also my whole thing is like, I don't care for the beach. So I would just go and read on the porch all summer.
Yeah, it sounds nice.
Because I can't do that where I live. It's just, I mean, besides being horribly, horribly hot, I actually don't have a porch.
Yeah. They don't really do porches here.
No, I mean, that was, like basements. When I first heard about basements also was a sort of old school thing in my head. I didn't realize that houses still have basements because we don't really do basements out here.
They do, and they're lovely because they're nice and cool. But we don't have really the structural.
We don't
integrity.
We're all sorts of like we do what we want, or our weather does what it wants in California.
Something.
But yeah, so I don't know. It seems very nice, but it is now becoming more, I guess, sort of pricing out. A lot of locals are being priced out of their houses.
Always seems to happen.
Always. I know I need to go find a place that like people don't know about yet, which would be hard given the internet to do that.
Right. But again, it can be your imaginary place, so no one will be there.
Well, then my imaginary place probably wouldn't be on this planet.
Ooh.
Which would then make traveling hard. How would I get there?
It's imaginary. You just go in your head.
Yeah, but I want to actually go to feel not, triple degree weather on my body.
Yeah, there's that.
In August. That would be amazing. And I'm not sure I've ever actually had that happen. To not be in triple degrees in August. That exists somewhere. I know it does.
It does. Especially in the southern hemisphere.
Well, yes. Yes, but again, I'd have to be one of those people who could afford to just go off for the summer.
Right.
Even in my imagination. But I actually want to feel it. So, you see the quandary I'm in? I'm in a quandary.
I know.
Sad. We're gonna take a break here so I can try and dig my way out of that. So stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Travel Podcast. Continuing with our theme of me wanting to be famous enough to go to somewhere like Martha's Vineyard.
You don't need to be famous enough, just wealthy enough.
Also that too.
Yeah.
Famous and wealthy enough. Those would be great. But then, of course, if I was famous wanting to not be as famous.
Right.
The tip for today, which I'm not even sure. I think that internet providers, searchers, whatever, are getting smarter. But for some, this might still work, which is if you're searching for like flights or whatever, to search incognito.
Oh.
In incognito mode.
Right.
Because if they can't track your browsing history, they won't track your cookies. And if they're tracking your cookies, they might see, Stacey really wants to go to Martha's Vineyard on such and such a thing. Okay, the next time she comes here, that price will be, $100 more. Mm-hmm. Because she's looked at it a few times. So we can see that she's probably going to do it. So to search in an incognito, so they always think it's like your first time there, and they don't be like, aha, you've come here 4 times, you're definitely going, we will raise the price. What are you going to do about it?
I just I got lost about 3 minutes ago over the phrase "track your cookies." I mean, the fact that our language now encompasses phrases that make sense, but
not exactly how those words would have been used.
I mean, I'm from 1950, and someone just said they're going to track cookies.
I was actually thinking about that just today, and what is it? Things like I was trying to figure out things that aren't idioms exactly, but that sort of, we use the words differently, like flag down a cab. It's like, there's no flags going on here. Where did that phrase originate from? Did you actually use like flags, like when they do with the airplanes to signal where you, like how, what?
Right.
Or like, beat it, like to get out, which I think comes from like beating on the pavement or something, like the way cops walk a beat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I wonder about the etymology on, but...
It's just like, that's not... If English was not my first language and you said certain things, I'd be like, what?
Oh, yeah. And actually, I don't even know why cookies are called cookies in the internet.
Because they're not good.
But cookies are good.
But, see? Now I'm confused again.
I like cookies.
Computer
Sometimes.
people. You just... computers don't... I mean, computers and cookies don't seem to like me. So...
Well, there you go. But anyway.
To get back on track.
Have we ever been on track?
What track is this? Where did the track... Yeah, getting with etymology. Anyways, continuing with the rich and famous, but wanting to get away from our rich and famousness selves, lives, what have you. Mm-hmm. The site for today is collectiveretreats.com. Oh. And this is... It doesn't, unfortunately, have a retreat so far in Martha's Vineyard. I'm not sure it could because there's a lot of people there where the idea of these is to get away because this is essentially a site for glamping. Oh. And for those of you who don't know, glamping is glamorous camping. So it's, in my head, especially with the pictures on Collective Retreats, it sort of looks to me like what Teddy Roosevelt would have gone to safari in, where it's like, yes, I'm going on safari, but I have to have, my however many assistants who set up the tent for me while I'm hunting, and I have my full walnut desk,
right,
and my feather down bed, and all these things while camping. Mm-hmm. It's not the bedroll in a tent. It's I have to have a room, just happens to be in a tent,
right? Or maybe it's a yurt,
right? Yeah, yurts look pretty interesting. Also,
I've stayed in a yurt.
I haven't. I kind of want to.
It was pretty interesting. I liked it.
So anyways, glamping, and the way they put it on the site, it's like a tent with 1,500 bed count sheets and over-the-bed chandelier. And I'm like, I don't know that I need an over-the-bed chandelier, but especially while camping, sure. All right. But so, yeah, they have a few...
I think car camping is cheating. I mean, I used to... growing up, we had to carry everything in 10 miles or whatever. Uphill both ways in the snow.
Right.
Kids.
Yeah, I kind of want to try this just because my one experience with camping was not great. So I might need to ease in. Although I'd go glamping once and be like, nope, I'm not going anywhere with less than 1,500 bed count sheets. That's my basic standard of camping.
Okay.
That's not even my basic standard at home, but whatever. So there's several of these, not one currently in Martha's Vineyard. There are two in New York State, one in, I believe, the Hudson River Valley, and one in a place I totally don't remember the name of. There's one in Yellowstone, and there's one somewhere else I can't remember the name of. But the pictures for this are amazing because it really does look like someone decided to make a permanent house just with a tent. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, they set it up to sort of go on a kind of theme. So each tent for the locations features unique design using locally sourced decor.
Oh, okay.
I kind of am now wondering, does that mean the chandelier over the bed, which looks like it's made out of antlers, was made out of local deer antlers?
Probably.
Or what does that mean? Or is it just from a local designer? How does that work?
Could be both.
Yes. But there's also books and maps about the location, which totally works for me.
Excellent, yes.
I'm like, I need this place right here. It's not terrible. It's a bed off the floor. It has books I can read. Why am I not here? Oh, that's right. It's $500 to $700 a night. Oh, yeah, that part. I forgot about that part. But they also have chefs. And it's not clear to me from the site whether this is a chef per tent or a chef per location. But there are chefs who create a farm-to-table feast under the stars. Because, again, we're bringing Teddy Roosevelt or, now what is it? I'm trying to think. It's from an old Hollywood thing where they went off with their luggage and had a gazillion pieces of luggage as they were going through somewhere. Oh, I can't remember.
I can think of several things, but I don't know what.
I don't know exactly what it is, but that does feel like it would have come up in a few different movies of, someone that high maintenance. This is me roughing it. I only bought, 12 instead of 20 luggages or whatever. This would kind of, I'm normally not high maintenance, but again, my first experience with camping was so not fun.
Aww.
That I do kind of want to go to the complete, I won't say complete opposite extreme, because I was most definitely like not roughing it. When our first tent, we had a tent, we had sleeping bags, we drove in. You know, it was a very straight, flat drive, not uphill either way. There was a bathroom with showers.
Oh, wow.
A little bit away. Like,
my first experience was going with my dad and my brother. We hiked in. It was, I don't know, it felt like 20 miles, but it was probably like 2. We hiked in. We set up our tent. We had our sleeping bags. We fished, so we caught fish. Otherwise, I'm not sure we would have eaten. No, Dad had food, but, you know, we caught fish for breakfast and dinner. And then we hiked out the next day.
This is the scene from A Parent Trap.
Yes. Except in The Parent Trap, they clearly are glamping, because think of all the stuff that they have in that scene, especially in the original.
Okay, I don't remember the original.
There's no way they packed all that stuff in with them.
I don't remember the original.
I mean, they've got tables. There's stuff set up on tables.
Right. They're probably doing what I did, which was go to a campground.
I think somebody drove around. They hiked in. Somebody drove around with all their stuff.
The second one, they all have on the big, heavy, except for Meredith, have on the big, heavy backpacks.
Right.
And they only have tents and an air mattress, which you could blow up there. And they eat trout for dinner and breakfast. So it's theoretically possible. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Did you have a twin?
I did not have a twin. No, just a 4 years older brother. I mean, I have a sister too, but she never went camping with us.
How did that work out?
She just didn't want to go, I guess.
Good for her.
She and Mom stayed home.
Good for them.
I, on the other hand, looked like Willie Nelson, because I had my hair in 2 braids, and I had a handkerchief tied around my head.
Aww.
Yeah, and I was about 7.
Very cute.
Anywho.
So yeah, I would much rather do this site, and I think I may have to try and save up to do it, though by the time I'd save that up, it wouldn't be summer anymore. So maybe next summer. They're about to open a new retreat, and again, I cannot remember the name, but it was somewhere I actually would kind of really want to go, and so, you know, maybe next summer I'll do that. So that's the site for today, Collective Retreats. And I won't even end it on that note. Let's end on this Sarah's Willie Nelson note. That's an interesting image. Just, you haven't seen Sarah, listeners, but imagine a cute little 7-year-old Willie Nelson girl.
If I can find that picture, I'll post it on social media.
All right. On that note, we're going to end for today. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Travel Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From travel to health and wellness to entertainment and life and happiness to sex and relationships. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast.